Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes this job takes you to places cuter than you'd expect. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt. I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and it's very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. You know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are, please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that little subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Blue Sky, the Threads, the Zoom. I lose track. We're everywhere. But we're In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats. InTheSeats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it all that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. On this very special episode, it's a story of sweet summer love. Specifically, the story of a young Indigenous couple who take a break from their troubled lives with their parents, who have their pros and cons, obviously, from their trouble, and when they find each other through the summer of love on the powwow circuit. It's called Sweet Summer Pow-Wow. And as much as this is an Indigenous story, this is a story first and foremost, and it's actually a good one. It's from writer-director Darrell Dennis, and again, it's a sweet movie that doesn't lean on the trauma or lean on any sort of the overused elements of being Indigenous. These are just unique, genuine, really fleshed out characters that just happen to be Indigenous, which again is a good thing. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with co-writer-director Darrell Dennis and his star, Tatyana Rose Baptiste, who just happened to star in the movie that opens today. And it's a good one. So, you know what? Go check out Sweet Summer Pow-Wow, check your local listings. But first, enjoy our talk with Darrell and Tatyana, because between you and me, it's a pretty darn good one. Thank you so much for the time today. I mean, congratulations on the movie. I thought it was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, Darrell, I guess my first question is for you. Walk me through the origins of wanting to tell this story, because, I mean, I was so struck by just, on one end, the, I guess, genuineness of the story and just trying to keep it to culturally specific and just sort of be very honest about it, but at the same time, hit all those sort of fun pop culture beats that we're kind of used to, especially in a rom-com kind of situation like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's based on my youth. I grew up in the powwow circuit. I grew up on a fairly isolated reserve, and going, spending the summers going to different powwows was a way to, meet different people from different communities. It was also for me a way to meet girls away from my own reserve. So that was a very popular part of the experience, and to try to fall in love, and I joke around that I used to fall in love every weekend. And I wish I was joking about that, but no, yeah. So like, it was a huge part of my youth growing up, and I kind of wanted to share that with audiences, especially with mainstream audiences, but especially Indigenous audiences who also grew up in the powwow trail. They know what an important part of their youth that was as well too, and how much falling in love was a part of that experience as well too. But I also grew up, with rom-coms, with the John Hughes films, and I'm a sucker for, the English ones like the Notting Hills and the Four Weddings and a Funeral and stuff. So I love those movies. I'm a big sap for those sort of things. But one thing that we never get to see is Indigenous films where Indigenous people get to fall in love, like those John Hughes films and like the Notting Hills and that sort of thing. So I was really interested in sort of, bringing those genres together. My love of the powwow culture and of my culture and of Indigenous film and the romance comedies, and so this was a long time in coming for me, and it's finally grateful that I had a chance to be able to marry the two.
No, I mean, obviously, in a film like this, it's all about finding the right lead, and you did so then some with Tatyana. I mean, talk to me a little bit about just, I guess, the casting process and sort of narrowing down on Tatyana, who obviously, and Tatyana, you give great performance. You're so fantastic in this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, when you have a here's the problem when you're writing a script where a character is described as, the perfect girl, somebody who's like, sort of the put on a pedestal in her community. She's beautiful. She's a perfect dancer. When you write a character that's pure perfection, it's really hard to find that character. And then Tatiana sends in her tape, and she is all those things. And then it's amazing. She just walks in and she finds it. So yeah, I mean, we were incredibly blessed to find Tatiana. The thing was, we were really trying to focus on British Columbia at the time for actors, and Tatiana is Toronto based, so that was one of the things where we were kind of looking at her, but it was undeniable. We had to bring her in from Toronto, although she is from BC originally, so it did make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Now, Tatiana, I have to ask, because obviously you've got a couple of credits, but I mean, you haven't done a lot of work. And I mean,
Hmm.
talk to me about, I guess, sort of meeting Darrell and have him be like, "No, I want you to be the lead in my movie." It's like, "Oh no, wait, I'm in how many scenes?" I can imagine that's a bit of a daunting task, especially when sort of you get that initial yes.
For sure. This was my first time ever being casted as a lead. Before that, I was just doing supporting or small roles. Um, it was extremely daunting. The fact that Daryl, Katya, and producers had confidence in me to do this was even more scary. I had to lean on the fact that they watched my self-tape. They saw me in the callbacks, and if they think I'm the right decision, like I have to also think I'm the right decision. A lot of, imposter syndrome goes on, especially in my head. So it was like, can I do this? And then it came to a point where they have confidence in me and I want to do this. So let me put everything I can. Let me take the time. Let me be a humble student in this, and give it my best shot. So I'm glad you liked
Well,
it.
for sure. And I mean, and this is for both of you because I mean, obviously, Daryl, you act as well, and I mean, you want to be an actor's director, but at the same time, I can imagine, Tatiana, like it's got to be so vital for you to have an actor on the other side of the coin for this to really to be able to draw the performance out of you. How did you guys sort of work together to find the sweet spot?
For sure. Um, it was amazing having Joshua as my co-star. I would say he is a veteran. He's been in a lot of amazing, amazing, amazing features. Um, Lots of things that have gone to festivals, have won awards, you know what I mean? So to have him be so experienced and to be able to lean on him not only as a friend, but as an actor as well was so amazing. The chemistry off the bat. Um, uh, the most important thing I think in romances and acting in general, when you have to do romantic gestures, the PDA, the kissing, the whatever, is that you feel safe, you know? And I felt very safe with Joshua and with Daryl as my director.
How about for you, Daryl? How was it to try to work with these young actors to bring them along to fit the vision of your story?
Yeah, I've said this before, and I've thought about it since. I started off as a young actor, and it's amazing. I look back at when I was their age as an actor, and I don't remember being as professional, being as talented and as vulnerable and as committed as those two were. So I was like, I don't know if it's just the new generation or if I was really immature at the time, but I was incredibly I was just blown away by both of them and their commitment to this piece and their professionalism and just their talent and their vulnerability. I think we're just in incredibly good hands for the future of acting, and especially Indigenous actors, especially. I think we're going to see some really amazing, breakthrough A-list stars coming out of our community. So, guiding them along, there wasn't really a lot I had to do. I mean, I always say for me, and I think a lot of other directors say this as well too. I mean, like 75% of your job is casting the right people, and I can't. It was casting these two was just amazing. A lot of time it was just action and let them do their thing, and then just coming in with a few notes every once in a while. It was they were just an amazing couple of actors to be able to work with. I was very blessed.
Love it. And I mean, I've heard people go as high as 90% when it comes to casting, but you're absolutely right. I agree with you on that part for
Well,
sure.
then maybe these guys it was 75%.
Now, I mean, something else that really struck me, and I mean, I totally mean this as a compliment. In watching it, it really never felt to me like it was an Indigenous story. It felt so much more to me like it was just a cute rom-com. For both of you, and I mean, I'll start with you, Darrell. Like, in terms of elevating story, how important is it to sort of strip away sort of the other artifices that maybe sort of audiences will focus on probably a little too much sometimes?
That's incredibly important to me. Kind of my mission as a filmmaker is to create films that are mainstream, that just happen to have Indigenous people that are centered on them. The last film I did, The Great Salish Heist, was a heist comedy. It was, a completely Indigenous cast where they were the heroes of the film as opposed to the sidekicks or the victims of a thing. So it's very important to me to have movies about centered on and have Indigenous people who are the heroes and focused on them. So in this entire film, there's like I believe there's one non-Indigenous character in this entire movie, and he's on screen for like maybe 30 seconds. So that's a huge thing for something that isn't like a period piece,
Yeah.
and so it is incredibly important to me, absolutely. And I think I want to create films that all the other cultures get to have, romantic comedies, action films, comedies that broad comedies that every other culture gets, but for some reason, Indigenous people don't get to see themselves as because film festivals and society is so used to seeing us in trauma stories
Mhm.
or as period pieces, where we are a thing of the past, a culture that no longer exists. So this is very important to me that yeah that this could have been that for you watching it, this could have been anybody. This
Exactly.
could have
Yeah.
been, yeah, it could have been a John Hughes film for all with Molly Ringwald or whatever, or now I'm really dating myself. Tatiana's like,
I'm with
who?
you, man, but so don't
Yeah.
worry.
But yeah, so that's very important for me, and thank you. That is a huge compliment. That it's just these are movies that they just yes the culture, the Indigenous culture of the powwow background is incredibly important to me, and it is incredibly important to me that these are Indigenous people. But at the same time, I want everybody to be able to identify with the character of Ginny and the character of Riley and say, hey, that was me when I was that age, or that's me right now.
How about you, Tatyana? Because obviously, like, you're playing a young woman who's at a bit of a crossroads, and I mean, to me, like, the powwow and sort of all that was, while beautiful and important, was secondary to sort of how she was feeling in the moment.
For sure. The most important thing with Ginny was what she was going through and how she was feeling, and that she was at a crossroads between her mind and her heart and her future. I think that's a something that a lot of young girls deal with around that age, falling in love, boys, the whole thing. So that was something that I knew not only Indigenous people could relate to, but everyone could relate to. And that going to the theater, you didn't have to just be an Indigenous person yourself or a fan of Indigenous media to go in to really enjoy this movie. Um, yeah, it's incredibly important for me. And I've always said this as well, that I love being an Indigenous actress, but I'm not just an Indigenous actress, I don't just want to audition for Indigenous 20s to 30s women roles, you know what I mean? I'm open to being, leading a TV series or another feature where it's not specific that I am of Indigenous heritage. It's just that is what I am. You know what I mean? I think that's incredibly important, and I think we're seeing that a bit more in media. Um, and you know, I just hope that that goes further and further. But yeah, I do agree with everything that you guys have said.
Well, and I mean, it really, at least to me, as admittedly the white guy on the outside looking in, and I mean, I'll fully own this. While the trauma stories, like you said, have been gravitated to and still need to be told, obviously, for various reasons, are so important, there is also a bit of a numbness to them at the same time. And to me, this felt so much more emotionally impactful because it wasn't a quote unquote indigenous story. It was just, no, I'm indigenous. That's who I am. Like you said, full stop. This is just who I am. Do you think that's the way collectively the indigenous sort of media landscape raises itself by just sort of having this moment of, yeah, I'm indigenous, so what? This is my story. This is my rom-com. This is our action story. This is us telling stories, period. It's not a trauma story, but it's a story. So sit down and enjoy it.
Yeah. I think one thing that media has done a really good job at, and I say good job in quotations, is putting a separation between Indigenous society and the rest of Canadian society
Right.
or North American society. And I think one things that we as Indigenous filmmakers and media people have to do is get rid of that separation. I think that is
I
really
agree.
important. Yeah, I think that's really important in our TV series, in our entertainment for one thing, is bringing that bringing those two cultures together. I mean, even sometimes when I always make this joke. I come from a comedy background, and one of the things that is really I notice a lot with is that even in Indigenous comedy, it's always like it's always sort of like the bridge between if a native person does this, then then a white person does this, and it's always that sort of separation
Yeah.
between the two. And I think, yeah, I think we have to start
Closing
closing
that
that
gap
gap.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's absolutely. I totally agree, and I think I think we're starting to move towards that. I think one of the things we're doing, especially as Indigenous filmmakers, is we're starting to create ourselves, put ourselves into roles where we are just the thing. We are just the cop. We are just the lawyer. We are just the doctor. And I think that is as much a political statement as all the other
100%.
statements as well too. Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you said, closing that gap is important. I mean, the gap was there for a reason, but now it almost feels like it's too much, and I need to bring it back a bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to start putting a wrap on this, and this is a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask. We're in a unique business that no matter where we came from it at, we're fans first. I mean,
Mm.
for both of you, and I'll start with you, Tatiana. Like, what was the movie or the moment in your life that made you go, light bulb, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this.
For sure. I think growing up, I've always been like a huge movie lover, but really when I was younger, it was more so theater. And I was taken under the wing of my actual musical theater teacher in elementary school. So that's where my love for acting came from. When I would say directing and like writing and acting in film, that love came, when I watched. I'm just a huge like fantasy fan. So like I remember watching like Game of Thrones and like when it was first out and like Lord of the Rings and like Star Wars and all those epics that I was like I want to do this. Like I want to be on a set like that. Like I want to do something that like takes you out of this world and into another one. So like of course. And like my favorite movie of all time is Dune. So Dune 2, the Dune 2 that just came out, that was like the most incredible movie going theater experience I've ever had in my entire life. So those feelings are like what keep me like in the game always. It's just like that wonder of like that kid-like wonder. So
Well,
yeah.
I love that. But Tatiana, as much as I love your taste, you've completely dated Daryl and I. So, but I have to go back, I have to go to Daryl now and sort of ask about his, as
Yeah,
the two
no.
old men in the room. So,
Yeah, I loved I've been really enjoying doing interviews with Tatiana because I've never felt more old in my life. It's great, but no, it's funny because when she said Star Wars, I'm dating myself because the movie that made me want to do this was the original Star Wars. I saw the original Star Wars in the theaters, and I remember thinking I didn't know how movies worked. I thought that the people were behind the screen acting everything out and it was being projected on the screen, making it bigger. So I wanted to go behind the screen afterwards and like see Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and meet them. So that was really funny. But I'm funny. It's funny. I wonder if Tatiana means when she says Star Wars. I wonder if she means the movies starring
Ewan
Natalie
McGregor
Natalie
and Sam
Portman.
Portman.
Jackson, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Does she mean those ones or the other ones? But that was the one, yeah, that for sure. And I remember that was great because after seeing that, I remember thinking I could go like this and move things with my hands and stuff like that. But that was really when I finally realized what a movie was. It was like that was I was obsessed with that, and I think that that made the seeds of making me know if that's how movies work, then that was definitely how I that was what I wanted to be in. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you brought up Star Wars. Just, I mean, I forget the exact language, but I mean, there's obviously an indigenous dub of Star Wars, and I mean, that's been played, and I mean, I love that that's been such an influential movie, and it's one of those things where I always come back to think of just sort of the inherent core of indigenous culture is storytelling.
Mhm.
That's really what it's all about. And I mean, for both of you, how do you think indigenous storytelling, especially in sort of the movie form now, where there's so much demand for content and there's so much demand to just get stuff out there for people to see it, how do you think indigenous storytelling is going to evolve going forward? Daryl?
Oh my God. It's funny in the indigenous community, we always see movies like that's always a reboot or a sequel
Right.
of everything. And we have this joke in the indigenous community. It's like we have a plethora of original stories from our legends, from our, even just stories from our communities, from our folklore that could make a million original stories. So yeah, there's such untapped potential there in our culture to make these really fascinating, interesting stories, and they all followed like the more or less the Joseph Campbell story that every single movie is based on anyway. So yeah, I think if Hollywood, if you're listening out there, come to the indigenous people. We got
We got your next
thousands.
franchise right here.
Yeah, we got franchises galore for you in the community.
Love it.
So yeah, yeah.
How about you, Tatiana?
I just echo everything that Daryl said. I always think that we have so many cool folklore legends, all of that stuff, so different from community to community that like there's millions of them, you know what I mean? There's so many things that you can do. And contemporary wise as well, like just the 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 indigenous the reservation red slang and like how funny and how like niche and just of a community like that is in itself um is so funny like at dinner the other day we were talking about how funny it would be to have like a horror movie with like super 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 resi kids and like know that they would be like the type to be like, oh no, we're not gonna let some freaking ghost like haunt us. Like we're going after it. You know what I mean? Like we have so much to give and so much to offer, and so much to write and so much to direct, and it's just waiting to happen, but it will. So
Well, I
the
can't wait to
future
see
is
what you
open.
both have next to give and offer. And I mean, honestly, again, thank you for this, sweet movie that just happens to be Indigenous, which, like you said, is just as powerful of a political statement and social statement as a trauma movie would be. Because again, it's the power of storytelling, which at the end of the day is what gets us all together and gets us in theaters and gets us to gather no matter where we are. And that's the beauty of it all. But I mean, Daryl, Tatiana, thank you again for the time and congrats on the film. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.